I love doing Bumblebee. But let's get real. When are we doing a Beast Wars spinoff?
You just might get your wish, John Cena. So, it has been heavily rumored that this new Bumblebee movie resets the timeline, that it's the beginning of a new continuity, a fresh start for the Transformers movie franchise. But officially, they've either refrained from calling it a reboot, or flat out said it's not a reboot. But if you've seen the movie, it really does seem like it is. And I hope you have seen the movie before watching this video, because it's going to be full of spoilers. I think the only things that connect this movie to the other ones are the cameo by Agent Simmons in Sector 7 and Bumblebee changing into a Camaro at the end. But I think those could be played off as nods to the previous movies. After all, there's nothing inherently wrong in reusing a character from a previous iteration. It doesn't mean that they're going to be the exact same character. And after Bumblebee's run-in with Sector 7, even if Agent John Cena is on Bumblebee's side, it doesn't mean his friends are. So he would need a new disguise. And his original Camaro mode would be a nice homage to his previous version if he can't use his VW Beetle mode anymore. Although the cynic in me feels like these otherwise harmless references might have been mandated by Paramount, especially the Camaro bit, since they were afraid this movie wouldn't be successful. So if it failed, they could still call it a prequel and continue doing Bay movies. Travis Knight even stated that Megatron was supposed to appear in the battle on Cybertron at the beginning of the movie. That is, until he realized that Megatron was supposed to be frozen on Earth during that time. Which to me sounds like Hollywood speak for him saying that he really was going to be in there, but the studio wasn't sure if this was going to be a reboot or not, so they had him taken out. Because even they thought the idea that Megatron being frozen on Earth, found by Sector 7, somehow thawing himself out, flying back to Cybertron to fight in a battle, then flying back to Earth only to get frozen and captured by Sector 7 again, would be too implausible. If this really was not a reboot, they could have easily put in an Easter egg or maybe an after-credits scene showing Megatron in the Sector 7 base at the Hoover Dam, which was the same base that they show in the Bumblebee movie. But them not doing that says to me they weren't sure, or were leaning towards this being a reboot, because Shatter and Dropkick were inside that base. Megatron might have even been in the next room, or for that matter the Allspark, and they couldn't detect either of them? Wasn't the whole reason they were in the Hoover Dam, and the secret reason why they built it in the first place, was that the concrete was thick enough to hide their energy signatures from anyone who may be looking for them? But that would only work if they were outside the base. Like I said, Shatter and Dropkick were already inside, and they didn't even hint at them being there? So in my opinion, until Paramount and Hasbro prove unequivocally it isn't, I say this is a reboot of the Transformers movie franchise. But what kind of reboot is it going to be? Is it going to be one where they just ignore everything that came before and start over fresh like Spider-Man? Or is it going to be like the X-Men, where there's an event that changes what happened before? Now I know it's been rumored that the next movie will be an Optimus Prime movie.
What does an Autobot have to do to get his own movie?
Which I can totally see, because the events in this movie do leave some unanswered questions, and an Optimus Prime movie could fix those plot holes, especially since it seems like the next movie might be an entirely animated movie. Director Travis Knight even saying that he would love to do a whole movie that's entirely animated based on Cybertron, basically like the first 5 or 10 minutes of the Bumblebee movie, but a full feature-length film. So I think an animated Optimus Prime movie, completely or mostly on Cybertron, would work perfectly, and help fill in some of those plot holes. Because the last time we see Optimus in the Bumblebee movie, he's surrounded by at least a couple dozen Decepticons with no escape. And then the next time we see him, he's on Earth with Bumblebee. How did he get from point A to point B? I think if they did some kind of Escape from New York or Escape from LA style movie, starring Optimus Prime in the role of Snake Plissken, set on Cybertron, that could be really awesome. And a perfect companion piece that would sort of mirror the Bumblebee movie and run parallel to it, with the Bumblebee movie taking place mostly on Earth, the Optimus Prime movie taking mostly on Cybertron, both occurring more or less at the same time, and then they meet up at the end. So that's probably going to be the next movie. If not, it should be. But what about the movie after that? Also, when will it be set? Could the next movie take place in the 90s? In the X-Men franchise, First Class, the first movie in their soft reboot, took place in the 60s. The next film, Days of Future Past, takes place in the 70s. Then Apocalypse in the 80s, and the upcoming Dark Phoenix movie is supposed to be set in the 90s. While this Bumblebee movie, which is set in the 80s, is also heavily inspired by the aesthetic of Transformers at that time, the original G1 series. Now remind me, what was Transformers in the 90s? Oh yeah, now what was one of the integral parts of the story in Beast Wars?
Say goodbye to the universe, Maximals. The future has changed. Yes, you no longer exist!
That's right, manipulating time in order to change history. So what if in the next movie, our heroes encounter two groups of time-traveling Transformers from the future? One led by the evil Predacon Megatron, who may or may not need to be renamed to something like Gigatron, just so the casual normies don't get confused between the two Megatrons. But anyways, this Beast Megatron, or Gigatron, is hell-bent on altering history in his favor, and they are being pursued by a team of heroic Maximals, led by Optimus Primal, who are working to stop them. We could even say they failed a few times to stop them, thus erasing all that revisionist history stuff that seems to be in every movie, giving us a clean slate going forward. They can even homage Beast Wars, give the cast a reason to have their beast modes, and add some new lore by basically recapping Code of Hero, saying that they just came from prehistoric times where the Predacons tried to exterminate humankind when they were only a few primitives. The Maximals were able to stop them in time, but one of their own paid the ultimate price. And now they're here in the 90s, where the Predacons are after someone or something that is very important and will be the key to helping the Autobots defeat the Decepticons. Initially playing it off as maybe a scientist or a new piece of technology, sort of Terminator 2 style, that'll lead to a weapon that will in turn help the humans help the Autobots to beat the Decepticons. But it turns out that it's actually Charlie, who in the future will go on to be a very important woman, like President of the United States and Human Ambassador to Autobots or something. But of course they can't reveal that to her without fear of influencing the timeline. In the end, the Predacon criminals are defeated, preferably without outright killing them. That way they leave the door open to potential spin-offs or returning characters in the future, and they all go back to their own time, thus resetting the current timeline. I think this is a brilliant way to soft reset the Transformers cinematic universe, even if I do say so myself, because this way the other movies aren't entirely written out of existence. They still happened, they just sort of got retconned, and they can still happen again in the new timeline, but they have the opportunity to choose the good bits and the MacGuffins and the characters and not be bogged down by their previous continuity. For example, they can reintroduce the Witwickies in a future movie and cast new actors and not make them super annoying.
You are so defensive. Were you masturbating?
Judy.
Was I No, Mom!
Zip it, okay?
It's
No, I don't masturbate.
And Sam could actually be likable, like Spike from the cartoon, and not a self-entitled little brat.
No, Dad! Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I am. You're not getting a Porsche.
And they can bring back some of the better villains like Sentinel Prime and Lockdown, but utilize them better and make them better characters. Like instead of just having Optimus murder his father figure at the end, make Sentinel Prime regret his decisions and sacrifice himself to stop whatever world-ending MacGuffin is in the movie. They can have Lockdown in the movies, but make him a reoccurring secondary villain. Like in one movie, maybe he was hired by another Decepticon to try and assassinate Optimus Prime, but during the course of the movie, they end up taking out that Decepticon who originally put the hit out on Optimus. So then Lockdown takes off, since he's no longer getting paid. Then he comes back in a future movie as like some hired muscle for another Decepticon baddie, but instead of fighting him, they just pay him off. You know, really just go all the way in with the whole bounty hunter thing and make him the Boba Fett of Transformers. Maybe they can even do a movie where the Autobots hire him to help them because they need his skills for something, but then he betrays them to the Decepticons for more money. Kind of like Benicio del Toro's character in The Last Jedi. Or if they ever visit McAdam's bar in the movie universe, he can be hanging out there playing cards, and then he hides his face when our Autobot crew shows up. Who knows? Maybe they can even bring this full circle, because it would be pretty hard, even with time-traveling Predacons, to retcon the fact that Earth has been Unicron this whole time. Maybe they're the reason that Unicron awoke to begin with. They can even retcon the reason that the supposedly heroic Autobots acted more and more vicious and bloodthirsty with every movie, by saying that as he began to awaken from his slumber, Unicron released a hate plague-like energy that makes Transformers and even humans more hostile and more violent the longer they're exposed to it.
What's the matter with them?
Feeding off their war and hatred until he finally fully awakens. They can end the Beast Wars movie with Optimus Primal breaking the rules of time travel by leaving Optimus Prime with a cryptic message warning him of Unicron's coming. And each movie thereafter hints further at Unicron, until the movies have actually earned it and built up to the arrival of Unicron, much in the same way that Marvel built up to Infinity War. They can even have the Maximals, and maybe even Predacons too, come back and unite with the Autobots and Decepticons to beat Unicron, while somehow saving the Earth in the process. For example, let's say Unicron is just the core of Earth, and using Sentinel Prime's space bridge technology, they swap out Unicron with another uninhabited planet of equal mass. That way Earth's okay, and they're free to blow up Unicron. Maybe even toss in a Michael Bay's Armageddon reference too, since they'd probably have to drill down into the Earth to plant the pylons. Or they can do some kind of universe crossover where the Autobots in this new timeline meet the Autobots in the old timeline, finally giving some kind of conclusion to that timeline. Heck, the Beast Wars crew could even be the gateway to a whole Transformers multiverse of movies, much in the same way that the Guardians of the Galaxy helped expand Marvel's universe to things outside of Earth. Let's say Beast Megatron being defeated only inspired him to greater goals. Not satisfied with changing his own universe, he travels to other dimensions, other forms of animation. They could travel to a more anime-style universe based on the Unicron trilogy, or a more comic book universe based on any of the various Transformers comic book series throughout the years. Heck, they could even go back to the original G1 cartoon universe and do a movie set after the Rebirth that's basically like a G1 Season 4 or Transformers movie 2. Who knows, maybe do the same for the Beast Wars era fans and do a Trans-Tech movie set after the events of Beast Machines. As someone who grew up on Beast Wars, never in a million years would I have suggested they do a Beast Wars movie with Michael Bay behind the wheel. But now, under the direction of Travis Knight, or someone else like him who doesn't hate Transformers, I feel comfortable trusting them to handle an adaptation of the Beast Wars characters without worrying they'll turn Primal into a big dumb poop-flinging monkey. And if they did it right, they can use them to reboot the Transformers cinematic universe without calling it a full-on reboot. I imagine these big movie execs have big egos and don't like to admit when they're wrong. So by making a future Beast Wars movie that reboots the franchise, technically they'd be correct in saying that Bumblebee is a prequel and not a reboot. Because it would be. It would be a prequel. Just not a prequel to the Bay movies, but to the new timeline, new universe of Transformers movies. In Star Trek they called their reboot universe the Prime Timeline. In Transformers, they can call it the Bumblebee Timeline. And Beast Wars could be the key to opening the door to potential spin-offs, both to other Transformers movies, but also other Hasbro franchises, and build that Marvel-like expanded universe of films everyone wants to make for themselves these days. What do you think? Could a Beast Wars movie work? What do you think the next movie will be? Do you think the Bumblebee movie should be a reboot or a prequel? As always, let me know down in the comments, and if you do like this video, give it a like, subscribe, ring the bell, even share it on social media. I know it sounds like silly stuff that every YouTuber says, but it really does help. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you here next time for more Transformers news, reviews, theories, and more.
Well, what do you think? I think history is about to change.
Here it is. It's whom I would be if I would become a Transformer that transforms from a robot into a toilet. It's a robot called the Jontron.
What? What the fuck?
It's a John, and then as you can see, it transforms into John.
Jontron.